Hi.
Hi, Rod.
Welcome. Thank you for coming to this installment of NRO Right. My name is Roughness, and I am the chair of NRO Right, which is the Center's program for emerging writers, whether lesbian, gay, bi, trans. It's a way of, there's a lot of talented people within this community, giving people an opportunity to have their voice heard. Unfortunately, sometimes there just are not that many opportunities for us to be able to be ourselves and bring our sexuality into our art. Just like in certain situations, you can be yourself, you're expected to not bring your ethnicity into your art. And this is an opportunity for people to be 100%, 110% who they are in all ways, shapes, and forms through their writing. This evening's event is going to feature Senator, switch those two words, a talented writer who happens to be a senator with Crayton. And I'm going to stop talking, but I'll be back later, and he's going to have a separate introduction.
Okay, well, what can I say about Clay? I met Clay in 1998. That's a long, long time ago. When I first joined the House of Latex at Working Women's Space, Clay's Busch Queen face. He's always had curly hair, pretty boy. Always squatted, everything was squat. But now he's such a, you see him now? He's so different. I met Clay when I was getting Reiki done by Arbor. He forced me to do Reiki, and Clay walked in. It was during one of the activities at GMAC. Currently, I'm a mother of the House of Latex. I work for GMAC as a community health specialist. GMAC is the HIV prevention organization. Well, Clay, let me see what I remember about him is the one ball that we went to in 1999 when he walked with a turban on, and he sat in the middle of the floor and went like this, causing it and everything. Clay is a multi-talented person. He can sing, write, everything. I can just kind of like, anybody ever seen The Living Color, the Hang On series? Clay reminds me of somebody like that. He's very multi-talented, does so many different things. And I think there's not much for me to say right now because I want to kind of like get into the gist of the book and learn more about what he's talking about. So here's Clay.
Videotape for the center's purposes, so if anyone has any discomfort level with being videotaped, you might just want to sit behind the camera in some way. But if not, we'll do it.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for coming out. I really, really appreciate it. This book has been in the works since about 1998. I came out in 95. And I started, going to balls immediately. And the ballroom scene was a big part of my culture and my, quote unquote, coming out in Philadelphia. So I was in this youth meeting called Colors with Kwame Ferragamo at the time. He's not here right now, Kwame Banks. And we were talking about the ball. And somebody was like, "Child, how come nobody ever wrote a book about the ballroom scene? Why isn't there like a novel? Why isn't there a story about the ballroom scene?" And somebody said, "Well, nobody could write it. I mean, the dialogue is too crazy, there's a certain language, it just can't happen." And so in that youth meeting, I said, "I'm gonna write this book, like I'm gonna put it out there." And so I started handwriting it, and handwriting at a horrible job that I had in between calls. I worked at a cellular phone company. So I was handwriting it, like between calls, like, "Oh God, I hate this call," I would just write, scenes or whatever. Then I got it typed up and everything, and in 2000 I officially finished it. But then it was like years and years of revising. So that's kind of how this book came to life. And I just want to tell everybody, because I don't want to assume everybody knows what a ball is. What an actual ball is basically an event where people come to participate and spectate from like various houses or whatever. And I guess the good analogy would be like fraternities. Somebody from the House of Latex, the House of Ibisu, or Icon, whatever the case may be, may come and battle for categories like face, who has the best face, or runway, walking like a runway model, or body. The categories go on and on and on and on. So that's what an actual ball is. But you kind of get that idea if you saw Paris is Burning, which came out in the early 90s. But for me, I wanted to explore the story behind these people in the ballroom scene. It wasn't just about being fabulous, about being a diva, what their stories were behind it. And as I would get to know kids in the scene and when I eventually walked and everything, there were such intense stories and it really amazed me. And then I have my own storylines in my head for other writings, so I wanted to combine those two. And I realized that this story hasn't been told before in printed media. This is an unsung voice. This community, as far as journalism and literature, has never been represented before properly. Actually at all. I mean, maybe in a few articles in the New York Times, but not even represented, so that's what I wanted to do. So, quickly, before I get started, I want to say that I didn't use real names of ballroom people. I used the actual house, but I didn't use like legends of the ballroom scene. You know, I wanted to protect the innocent, you know what I'm saying, and the guilty. So I wanted to avoid like using any kind of names. The experience that I have in this book, it isn't the experience of every person in the ballroom scene. Everybody has it differently. So it's not just the main character, Jacob, it's not everybody's experience. This is what he was going through. And I wanted it to be raw, I wanted it to be impactful, and I wanted it to be truthful. So that was my main focus. All right, here we go. The Strip oozed an overcrowded wasteland of fantasies, confusions, and dying dreams. Street lamps glowed like drunken moons on each corner, leaving an implicit spotlight for the characters of this unscripted drama to perform. Personalities packed under the grimy lights as if they were fighting for center stage in a civil war for attention. Authentic and inauthentic characters battled, destroying the delicate balance of gender codes, yet satisfying their own delusional roles that were not sincere, but granted them a spot in the savage war. The belly of this world breathes stories of rejection and acceptance, anguish and reinvention. In this world, we manically search to be iconic. Everyone wants to be famous, to be a celebrity, to be a legend. We strive for this at any cost in this so-called world. Illusions can make you beautiful when life is a battle, even after death. Constantly questioning what is right, but in the end, it will be the answer that no one has contemplated. We all have choices, but we do not choose what the choices are. We may crash, fall, and tumble, but this is at our mercy, in wonderment, playing the role of the smartest fool, the naive hustler, or the dead survivor. We are trapped in this ball-shaped world. The commentator was about to close the category for New Face of the Year when Kelly walked me out to the middle of the floor, presenting me to the judges. Love Hangover by Diana Ross played, making me feel it. I tried to remember the rehearsals for Face, look confident, conceited, and sell it because it's over. Kelly let go of my hand saying, "You better serve." He dramatically snatched the veil off my face and walked away. The crowd started clapping, helping me build confidence. "Yes," the commentator yelled. "All right, Kelly says this is Jacob Ebony, light and lovely pretty boy. It's over." I felt it as I gave a sexy half smile, licking my lips and casually walking to the panel. Deidre gave me my 10s instantly. I stood directly in front of the panel, turning my head from side to side so they can get into the face as much as they needed. The other judges quickly followed with their 10s, nodding their heads as the commentator declared, "10s, 10s, 10s across the board." I finally breathed and stood to the side, waiting for more competition. That was easy, I said to myself, as the commentator quickly closed the category. There were about 10 others that walked New Face. I walked again with 3 other boys and sat them all down. I was surprised I made it this far, thinking I wouldn't get past the first set of people. Finally, it was down to 3, including myself. The 2 others were strikingly gorgeous. One of the boys from the House of Prestige, with an incredibly clear honey almond complexion, soft features, and high cheekbones. The other from the House of Icon, who had a deep chocolate skin tone with the defined and rigid bone structure of the greatest African god. I knew I truly had to sell it to win. The final 3 to the back of the runway, the commentator instructed. All right, Ebony, Prestige, and Icon, DJ, start the beat. Love Hangover boomed again as the 3 of us sold our face down the runway. I hit that floor, setting both my hands on the sides of my face, moving them up and down as if I was trying to pace, as if I was tracing a picture frame to emphasize my undeniable part. The Ebonies cheered me on, screaming almost in tune. Once we reached the panel, we were ordered to stand directly in front of the judges so they can see which one was the oldest of them all. Get up into it, the commentator demanded. Get into the skin, the teeth, the nose, the structure. All 3 of us faced the judges in a row, with me in the middle. The judges stood from their chairs, examining every minute detail of our faces. I heard Deidre point out, honey, the child from the House of Prestige has a good chip front tooth. That is not face, darling. Noticing the Prestige imperfection, I gave a beaming smile and traced my index finger over my straight teeth so they could observe what flawless should truly be. By this time, the crowd was surrounding all 3 of us, nearly in a frenzy, demanding whom the winner should be. The dark-skinned Icon crawled on the judges' table like a kitten, trying overly hard to win. While the Icon did have better bone structure than me, I knew he was selling it a bit too much by climbing on a filthy table like an alley cat in heat. I continued smiling, keeping it light and breezy, tossing my head from side to side, knowing I had a sparkle in my eyes. Who do you see, the commentator asked, pointing to the judges. 1 Icon, 2 Icon, 1 Prestige. I felt defeat eating at me. 1 Ebony, that was Deidre. 3 Icon, 2 Ebony, 3 Ebony. The Prestige walked away, knowing his chances were gone, and the dark-skinned Icon and me were tied. The last vote was being held by an old, decayed, gaunt drag queen that took her sluggish time to inspect our faces, as if we were a science project. Child, the commentator yelled, ready to read, you will never be this over, so pick one of these boys. The drag queen threw her head toward the commentator like she had a bone-snatched ponytail and spat, I may never be that over, but you will always be that ugly bitch. I pick Ebony. The laugh from the crowd and me winning drowned out the commentator's comeback. Someone handed me a fake gold trophy as I was declared the new face of the year. I gasped with excitement as the Ebonies cheered from our house table. I tried to play it cool, but inside I was ecstatic that after all this drama, I snatched the trophy. Deidre jumped up from the panel, giving me a quick kiss in the cheek. Work out, bitch, you are a full-fledged faggot now, she said. I laughed as Kelly walked up, planting a lustful kiss on my lips in front of everyone. I felt embarrassed, pushing him back a bit. Vicky ran up to me, giving me a hug. I felt like I won Best New Artist of the Year at the Grammys. You ate it, bitch, Vicky said. Of course, Kelly had to kiss you in front of all the girls, letting them know that you were his. I agreed. Kelly and Vicky walked me to the bathroom to get undressed, saying they knew I would win. I joked back, saying I knew I would too. Omar pulled me in the legendary second bathroom of the club that I never entered. I heard of the decadent happenings in this part of the club, but I never explored. Why are we going in here, I asked, slightly hesitant. The mirrorless bathroom was packed with people, mostly an older crowd, filling the small room with pungent odors of weed, cigarette smoke, alcohol, and other smells that I forced myself to ignore. The walls were stained with frantic writing. The 2 urinals had several needles in the drain, and the people looked drugged out of their minds. These were the ones the young kids read for being doped out ballroom has-beens. Omar pulled me in a small corner, pulled out a straw, and told me to take a hit. I've done a lot for you, and I need you to do something for me, he said, handing me a drink of Hennessy. Sure, baby, whatever you want, but do we have to do it in here, I asked, taking the hit and swallowing as much of the alcohol as I could. I was not much of a drinker, but I needed something to take my mind off this vile bathroom. The flawless hit went to my head. Omar guided me to the only bathroom stall that had a door. One of my clients are in there, he said, softly tapping on the door. He's pissed off because I didn't pay him for some drugs. You helped me use those drugs, Jacob. I still didn't understand what Omar was asking as I stood with my back against the bathroom stall and him standing in front of me. Dizziness racked my head as I looked around the bathroom, trying to make out a familiar face through all the smoke and the smoke in my own mind. So, what do you want me to do? I want you to go in there and suck his dick until he says stop. He told me he'll forget about the debt if I have someone do that for him. You're my boyfriend, so I need you to do it. What? I answered, still not sure what he was asking. Suck his dick for a debt. What was Omar saying? Omar cracked the door open while he softly pushed me in the stall. Just do it. I'll be right outside the door. Omar, I can't, I whispered, shaking my head, confused on why he was asking me to do this. What are you talking about? Suck some guy's dick. I felt sickly as I pushed Omar away, trying to get out of this grotesque bathroom. Slowly, Omar's hand circled around my neck like a used dog collar, pinning me to the stall door. You can. Haven't I done a lot for you? I paid your boyfriend's rent. You need someone to live with, don't you? You need to eat, don't you? You want to get high, don't you? I'll be right outside the door. Now do it, or we'll both be fucked up. I looked at Omar's chocolate face and his bald head with the sweat beads forming on his brow. He was serious in his calm, eerie voice. He squeezed harder on my throat and kissed my cheek. Slowly, I was pushed harder into the stall by my neck as I glared at him, begging for some humanness to not make me do this. The House remix of And I'm Telling You by Jennifer Holliday blared outside the bathroom. My mind was cloudy. I was trapped in a bathroom stall. I couldn't run. I couldn't even fight. I was so drunk and high. I went a few inches into the stall until I bumped into someone. Omar nodded his head, let go of my neck, and closed the door. He leaned up against the door, blocking it so no one could get in, and I couldn't get out. I turned around, and gazed upon a short, fat white man with crooked glasses, a tight, gray, dirty business suit, and his slacks around his ankles. He was stroking his tiny, plump, pink dick that emerged from his reddish, flabby thighs. He looked at me with the look of a hungry slave master waiting to be serviced. Hey boy, suck my cock, he demanded, looking at me with his tongue hanging out of a thin mouth. I saw his disgusting man breast blooming out of his tight suit. I was trapped between Omar and this beastly man. I could not say no. Trying to get out of the stall, I would have to scream and eventually fight. What if the guy had a knife or a gun like the man that killed Deidre? I lowered my head and softly began to cry. I went down to my knees and began to sob. That white man put his slimy hands on my head. Suck my cock, boy, he ordered, obviously enjoying my distress. He held onto his dick, pulling it, whining for me to suck it. I put my lips to his pink, tiny fleshy dick that I knew was not circumcised. The stench of white cheese caked out of him. I had to finish this before my high wore off. It will soon be over, I thought. Nothing can last forever. I put my mouth on his dick and began to suck my soul away. He moaned, sweated, and snorted like a savage beast. I felt my tears dripping on his fat legs. I begged for it to be over, begged for it to stop, begged for someone to save me from the trenches of hell that I was living in. The smell of weed, shit, piss, alcohol, dick, and a dying boy nearly made me vomit. I was going to vomit on this white man's dick, and then he might kill me. I heard him snort again and moan. He pushed my head back, making me slightly hit the door. He come. His toxic white ooze dripped on the bathroom floor, inches away from touching me. I pulled myself up and knocked on the door. Omar slowly opened the stall and looked at the man, knowing I did what he asked. Good boy, Omar smiled. I shoved my way to the bathroom sink, making some of the addicts yell at me. With what little water came out of the faucet, I scrubbed my mouth and my face. I was hitting below bottom. I was lowering myself to a gutter that I did not even know existed. Omar came behind me, and I felt his hard dick through his clothes. I turned around to face him so he could see the mess he made. He gave me the straw, and to escape, to run away, to find that cloud that was sinking lower and lower. I took the hit. I ran and ran. Thoughts trampled through my mind as fast as I was running. I ran so much, I imagined I was running away from my own life. I had to rescue myself, but it was familiar, this running. From the beginning, I had always felt far removed from this world, and now more than ever it was true. My sexuality isolated me from straight people, including my family. I stupidly thought when I arrived in the ballroom scene that I was accepted, but I was slowly being torn apart, resembling a sample of a soul. What was this ultimate causality that I was haphazardly functioning in? I had been running, but I wasn't getting away from anything. It seemed like I was running into more than I could manage. I felt so distant from this world, like I didn't belong. My purpose was an ancient history forgotten long ago, while trying to be a ballroom diva, a witty faggot, a good lover, and so many other abstract versions of me that I never achieved. My mother loved me, but she didn't want me. And if your own mother didn't want you, then who did? There must be something wrong with me for every meaningful person in my life to disappear, I thought. Nothing made sense anymore, and I couldn't continue with these fruitless attempts to make things better. Thank you. Sit down and do it after studio. Looks like that.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Everyone's so quiet. I don't understand that. Well, thank you. Like, welcome to come. You're a little like Oprah /
Question, y'all can ask questions.
You can ask questions.
Yeah.
Just 1 second. A specific set of questions I want to ask. This is going to be interesting because I have to pretend that I don't know him. Can you all hear me? Should I speak louder? That's fine. I have this in front of me. She's not on. It's on. It's on. It's on. Is it? I don't think I did, but I'll just try to speak up. This is going to be fun because I actually know Clay, so I have to pretend that I don't take this conversation. I think my first question is, what is it about the ballroom community that creates a sense of home for people? What is it about? I mean, I'm aware of it.
Right.
And I've been to it, but what is it? There seems to be a very strong sense of family. Where did that come from? When you're not speaking for everyone.
Right, exactly. Well, I think first of all where it comes from is for a lot of kids, not all, but for a lot of kids, it's being exiled from your own family. So, like any other subculture, when kids or young people are exiled, they look for something to hold on to. The punk rock scene, with even sometimes with the hip hop scene, or with color gangs, they look for something to hold on to. And I think that the ballroom scene provides that. One could debate how positive it always is and how negative it can be, or whatever the case may be. But it's a family that I think, starting back when I first started, like in the in the 70s and 80s, that people wanted to hold on, and they wanted to feel like that you may not have a biological family, but you have someone that understands you and is willing to help you. And and the competition and the brothers and sisters, the mother and the father going out there and battling each other or whatever, that builds more of a family. At least when I was in the House of Latex, having them scream for me when I was walking face or whatever, going up for Aisha when she was out there, or our house mother, that builds something for some people.
Because you grew up in
I grew up in Washington State and in Philly. I'm bicultural. Was there no sense of was there a sense of a community, like a gay? In Philly?
Yeah.
Well, this book is placed in Philly, actually. It's not placed in New York. So yeah, there's a lot of people that are gay and Black, Latino, and are not in the ballroom scene. But with Philly, that was the first environment I came out to. All the ballroom kids embraced me, and I actually have met them at like youth meetings before actually seeing them at balls. So you felt that immediately. And to see people like on the floor and voguing and eating it up, and to see them go up, see people going up for them, you wanted to do it too. You know, you wanted the accolades. You wanted to have them say, look, bitch, it's over for you, you know, eat it, eat it, eat it. And even when I go to a ball, I still get that feeling of how it's a high, and it can be.
Well, what is the experience of actually being on the walkway, on the runway? Because I feel like one of the things that the ballroom community does is sort of eradicate the idea of, or break down the constructs of masculinity and femininity, and you can be whoever, not whoever you want to be, but whoever you actually are.
Right.
And what does that feel like when you are on that stage?
Well, I'm not a ballroom diva. I walked 2 or 3 balls. But I felt like I didn't have to be a ballroom diva to write this book, because I was more concerned with the stories behind these people. But I think that, like you were saying, it allows you to be somebody else and go out there and be who you really are. And that's true, but for some people, they're still not being who they really are. And that's what this character Jacob's going through, you know. If you are totally insecure and you hate yourself, and Jacob comes from a very religious family, his mother came out of his house and everything, you know, just because you get in the ballroom scene doesn't mean you necessarily be more of who you are. You may be more of who you aren't. You may be more of who you are, depending on the people that are supporting you. Like I had Arbor, who was totally, you know, by my side, and I had Kwame when I was younger, although I wasn't walking balls then. So I think it's not necessarily the feeling on the runway or on the floor. I think it's more how people are molding you before you hit the floor. Because I've seen people break down and lose their mind when they got chopped. I've seen girls throw out chairs and, you know, bring out guns. And all that's in the book. I mean, there's positive things in the book too, but it's, you know, for some people, going out there is their life. So they're weighing a lot on it.
What is he ultimately on the search for?
He's on the search, he doesn't know what he's searching for. He's kind of like traveling haphazardly and making a lot of mistakes. He's afraid to make his own decisions. So he goes through a bunch of men. And there's positive people that are there. One of the main characters, Vicky, she's there. But he's stubborn. And he's searching for identity. And at the end, he kind of finds that. And finding that doesn't mean rejecting the ballroom scene. It just means his approach to it is different. His approach is different, and he's more focused on his identity, not a ballroom identity.
It's your experience of it is what I'm gathering from specifically what your intention of this character is the Black and Latino world. Is there ever a crossover? Is there very hard and distinct lines between
White folks and
white
black,
over here and
well, you know, I thought about that when I was writing it, and I figured that, you know, white folks write books all the time, and there isn't Black and Latinos in the book. So I didn't make a distinction. I didn't purposely like make a distinction. I wanted to tell a real story, and there are white folks in the ballroom scene. But when I was coming out, I really didn't see that, like, because you know, it's within. I mean, white folks are accepted, I guess you could say, but it's more within the Black and Latin community, and it's something that's ours. And I've seen white kids go out and like get chopped or whatever the case may be, and not get chopped. But I didn't. This book isn't racial. It isn't a racial story. It isn't battling racial lines. It's about these people, regardless if they're Black and Latino. It's these people, this main character looking for an identity. I've read books on the punk rock scene, and they never mention Black folks. So I guess for me, it wasn't about race. It was about, you know, telling the true story, the raw story, from this 18-year-old's perspective.
but there are racial elements. I mean, I think it's possible for any story to not, any story set in contemporary, or any period in history of the United States, not about race to a degree, specifically when you did not hold back about
The white man, yeah.
What is he reacting? Is it because this man is white? Is it because he just doesn't find this particular man attractive? What is it about that's so repulsive about this individual?
Well, I mean, in that particular scene, when I was, for example, like I said, the guy, the white Omar, who was Jacob's date at the time, owed him some money. And whenever you think, and I did this purposely, maybe you can say it's racial, but to me it really wasn't. Whenever you see scenes about drugs in a Black and Latin community, it's always Black and Latins. And that's not the truth. Whenever you see it in the media, it's always Black and Latins, Black and Latins. So I put that character in there, not necessarily being a white character, but I thought that it was appropriate because I've seen the older white men, I'm not saying all white folks, y'all know what I'm saying. My mother was white, so it's not like that, but I've seen older white men walk into the clubs, you know, picking up these young boys and paying them or whatever the case may be. So it wasn't necessarily the white guy that was doing it for the character. It was Omar, who was Black or whatever. So I'm sure there's racial lines, but like I said, it's not a racial story to me, and it's, you know, certain elements are out there, but I wanted to focus on these people's story. Every book about Black and Latinos, it's all about race and battling or whatever. This is within their community, and you see this in the novel with the ballroom scene. There is like light skin, dark skin, and you know the light skinned kids win sometimes, the dark skinned boys win. You know, so you see some of that, but I really didn't add a bunch of white characters for the sake of adding white characters. You know what I'm saying? So.
Do you think that there is a space for, because you also sing, in case people aren't aware that he does sing. He doesn't just write, he does a lot of different things. For a gay Black male artist, shall we say, to make their mark, do you feel that there is a space for you as a writer to go out and do what you want to do? I know that you feel there's an audience, and there is an audience, but do you feel like the powers that be want to create a space for you to be able to speak to your audience?
No, I don't think so. The powers that be want to do that. When I think of the powers that be, I think of the ruling class, so no. But I'm not concerned with that. That isn't important to me. I mean, I've worked really hard, and I want this book to be out because I think, when I read Invisible Life as a kid, I don't know if y'all read Invisible Life by Ethan Harris, it was cool, but it was like, I couldn't relate to these older people going to Hampton and whatever the case may be. It was just kind of like out of my realm to like really relate to it. So I wanted to tell a real story that wasn't universal for everybody, but that a kid like me when I was coming up could relate to. So as far as the venue and the avenue, I mean, there probably isn't, but I have agents looking at the book now. I have no doubt that it's going to be published. I have no doubt, considering the people that are looking at it. And I've used the Elin Harris backdrop. Well, Elin Harris's book did well, so that's part of the marketing aspect of it. You know, you got to make it think, oh yeah, it's going to da-da-da-da. So I've used that as a backdrop, that if he can do it, there's a space out there for it.
And are there artists, who are some of the artists that have, besides Janice, when you're talking about her nonstop, did you see the Grammy tribute?
I sure did. Melissa Gilford.
Yes, she did. That you're inspired by?
Well, writing-wise, I'm really inspired by the Harlem Renaissance era. I'm really big on Richard Wright. He's one of my favorites. James Baldwin. Zora Neale Hurston. Contemporary, I like Octavia Butler, who's a sci-fi writer. I like little trashy novels like D.C. Andrews, Flowers in the Attic. So that was the first novel I ever read. So, you know, I mean, it's a variety of people. So that's writing-wise, that's what I'm inspired by.
What is your definition of flawless?
Of flawless? Flawless is an illusion. It's not really real. I mean, the ballroom scene is about illusions. It's about putting out an illusion. As Paris Burton said, it's not a satire. It's the real thing, but it's still an illusion. No one can be flawless. No one can be perfect. When I walked, I was like, come on in, come on down.
Cheers.
I appreciate
Cheers.
your comments. Y'all can come up front.
To the right place.
But yeah, nothing can be flawless. The 2 times I walked face, my friend Ricky, he painted me down, and I was painted for your nerves. He put hairspray on my face because that makes it look more natural. It does. And I was just like, oh my God, it was really, you know. So nothing is flawless, and nothing is perfect. It's just a matter of, you know, feeding the illusion and being the illusion. that's when the kids go out free.
Does it become difficult for people to step outside of that and look at it as this is just a performance?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a ballroom diva.
No.
But I'm saying,
in terms of the story that you're
right, but for the main character, Jacob, it is hard for him to do that. He can't really see a difference. And he invests all of his life in being a ballroom diva. He drops out of school, he does tons of things. I mean, but for the other characters like Vicky, I have a transgender character, Deidre, they see the difference. But some feel trapped, and that's the part of the prologue, is that they feel trapped in this quote-unquote ball-shaped world. And some don't. So, you know, for this character, yes, but I think it varies. There are people in the ballroom scene that are doing tons of things that are really, really successful and, you know, really putting other things out there. But this particular young kid, I wanted to tell a raw story of a young kid who loses himself and finds it at the end. Or not really finds it, but at least gets a little closer to it.
And how old is he?
He's 18. When the novel ends, he's 19. And there's other characters that are older and, you know, younger too.
Other questions, I could actually talk for a very long time. I have the capability to do that. But I won't. Quite right. Does anyone have questions for Clay that they'd like to ask?
Roughness.
I'm curious to know what was your biggest struggle when you were writing the book, whether it's, you know, how you started it or what's the hardest thing for you to work through?
Right. My biggest struggle was, well, I knew the beginning and I knew the end, but I didn't know what was going to happen in the middle. So I was kind of just like writing it. And it was almost as if, like when I read it sometimes, I don't even feel like I wrote it. It's not my life at all, you know, but I don't even feel like I wrote it. I feel like somebody else wrote it. So it was kind of like keeping in that flow. And I have one of the main, I don't mind saying this because the book isn't out yet, but I have a main character, Deidre, she's the transgender character. She gets murdered. And that, like, I remember I was writing and I was crying as I was writing. It was real weird. I was really emotionally invested in the characters. So stuff like that was kind of weird. And all the revising, you know, was hard, but.
What is the Latin involvement in this scene? And what is the profile of a Latin person that is in the scene?
Well, I have several Dominican and Puerto Rican characters in the book. But as I was saying before, it's not a book about racial lines. So one thing I don't do in the book is I don't show, like, some people think there's like a division between Latinos and Black folks in the ballroom scene. I don't really show that. Every single chapter is not about balls, you know what I'm saying? But I can't really say the way I profile them because me personally, I could be wrong. I don't really see a division between Latinos and Blacks. I don't look at that to be like an interracial thing or whatever. So I kind of just, you know, put it out there and made it real according to what I saw. But I wasn't like thinking of my Latin friends when writing it or anything like that.
No, the reason I ask is like, because, you know, Latino is not really a racial category, it's more of a cultural one. So that's why I wanted to like understand, you know, what is kind of like the affinity in the situation. This is I know nothing. Remember we were talking about it?
Yeah.
You're like, you're Latino, you don't know the ball scene. I'm like,
I didn't
is
say
it like a club scene?
I said you've been to a ball before. No, I can't really say the way that I profile Latinos. I mean, I don't know. When I read books that Latin authors wrote or Native American authors wrote and they had Black characters, I wasn't looking for a way to be profiled. I wanted it to be real, and I wanted it to be raw and to be honest. When I describe somebody, I would say they were Dominican or they were Puerto Rican. I would say that, but then I wouldn't say because oftentimes you can't know. One of the main characters, Murray, he's Puerto Rican, and he transitioned to being a femme queen. So, I mean, I don't really dive into Latin culture. I can't say, you know, after that.
Why do you, because, and this is my own personal opinion, I do think that there is a line between being Black or being, and see, I don't think Black versus Latino, I don't think it's the correct thing to put the two together, but that there is a difference, and a difference in history and heritage, and what someone will bring to a situation.
That's talking about ethnicity, it's not talking about race.
Right, very, very nice.
So, yeah, exactly. When it comes to racial lines, I mean, it depends on how you identify. And, you know, being Latin isn't a race. There's only 3 races: Black, White, and Asian. So, if you're Latino, are you white, are you Asian, or are you Black? Some identifies white, some identifies Black.
That's what we disagree with.
Well, there are only 3 races. There isn't like 25 races, only 3. So, it depends on what your consciousness is or whatever.
There's only one.
The human race? Well, yeah.
And this falls beneath that.
Yeah, it's a little bit too low.
Ethnicity falls into a separate category.
Right. Well, it does. I don't want to get into the topic on the constructs of race, the social construction of race, but I know we give. But let me answer. The reason why I didn't make a division, like a clear cut, the Latinos and the Blacks or whatever, is because in my experiences of what I just don't. Maybe I just don't see someone that different.
I'm phrasing myself incorrectly. I'm not saying that are there conflicts. I'm saying, yeah, there will be conflicts, but I guess my question is more one of within these characters, what within their characters is bringing to them, what's making them feel more at home here than they would have in the world that they came from? Does their ethnicity play into that in any way?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. The characters, Jacob specifically, he's the main character. He thinks he'll be more at home in the ballroom scene, but in the end, he's not. You know what I'm saying? And as far as he's exiled from his community because of religion, and it's kind of like a double consciousness or duality. For some Black and Latinos that are gay, they feel like, not all, but for some, they feel like it's a double thing, you know. They may not feel comfortable totally around an all white, you know, environment or an all black straight environment. Not for all, but for some. So with Jacob, he's the one, he's grappling with that. But you know, I really can't answer the question on how it may separate.
Well, I guess
Latinos and
a
Blacks.
larger question that I might have that if maybe good if you can answer, maybe someone else could answer, because I don't consider myself an aficionado as far as the ball scene, but my question comes out of the fact that I feel like whether the ones that I've been to or whether watching Paris is Burning, or I feel like the idea is to erase the issue of ethnicity, and it's just everyone just celebrating who they are.
I wouldn't say.
You wouldn't say.
No, I wouldn't say that. No, I wouldn't say that at all. I mean, there's strife racially in the ballroom scene. I mean, there's a lot of strife. I mean, people say, I've heard so many things, but this is through the eyes of an 18-year-old. And I have ballroom politics in there, but I don't have racial ballroom politics. Just, I mean, stuff like who's on the panel, who's getting chopped, you know, stuff like that. The scenes where there is like ballroom scenes or whatever. I mean, you know, the reason why people are more successful, jealousy, stuff like that. But I don't really put in like the House of Extravaganza walks over and got mad because the Ebony's. You know, I don't really put that in. Extravaganza is going to be more of a Latino house. I just don't really add that element in. And he is an 18-year-old boy. It's through his eyes. It's not like a bird's eye view. So he doesn't really see it like that. And also it's places like Philadelphia, where there's probably more Latinos in New York than there is in Philly, but they're still there. But I just didn't put that element in there, and I wasn't interested in it. There were so many things I wanted to explore, the stories behind these people. And I didn't want to make it a trite, you know, oh, you light-skinned bitch, you beat me, or you this fight. I didn't want to turn it into anything like that. I mean, but there are intra-racial issues in the ballroom scene, but, you know. Regina?
I just wanted to ask as far as like, when the time comes for publication and so forth, I wonder if you have given any thoughts to including, maybe as a suggestion, including something like a glossary, just because for the sake of the readership, like this could be something that is, at least at first read by people who are familiar with what's going on, but also this is also something that could show up in the Black subcultures class at Rutgers, and then you're like, and then you got, you know, the 18-year-old white girl who took the class as an elective, it's like, so
what does it mean by child? What does it mean by this? What does it mean by that?
Well, actually, and I didn't explain this when I first did the reading. The main character learns everything along with the reader. Every single step you're going through the main character. In the first chapter, he's talking to Vicky, and Vicky just went to a ball in Jersey, and that's when he's like, well, what's a ball, or whatever the case may be, and about a few chapters later, he goes to a mini ball for the first time. So you learn every single thing with the character, as if I did in the many kids in the scene. You kind of walk through it, so you learn every little thing, not every little thing, but you learn along with him, and you know what he knows. So by the time you get to the scene, the middle scene that I read, you know when he's saying, oh, child, oh, whatever, you know what all those things are. So, and I kind of got that from books from the Harlem Renaissance, where they would speak in more of a quote-unquote slave jargon. And as you're reading it, you know what's going on. So that was important to me to describe, because the ballroom scene has a language, has a distinct language. You can be talking in your own quote-unquote ballroom language, and somebody next to you wouldn't know. But I didn't put big Latin in there. I don't know. Expect big Latin in there.
You have this whole idea of cause and effect when you're reading because of keeping the kids out of his house and exile from his mother. And I was just curious, how much of a role does that really play in the book? Does your character know that he's been caused to be kicked out of the house and now his cause is to find himself, or is he more of a younger, naive kind of?
Well, he's very young. He's very naive. He actually, one of the scenes is his mother saw him his aunt saw him on 13th Street, which is the big strip in Philadelphia. And she confronts him about it, and she throws him out of the house because she's very religious. And there's some really heavy, church scenes in there. And so he made sure he would never tell his mother. And when his mother finds out, he's kind of exiled, he's thrown out of the house. And that really throws him into the ballroom scene. But like I said, not every person has the same experience. It throws him in a negative way to a certain extent because he has no choice. He's kind of just in there versus other kids may get involved into it, and their family does know, and their family's aware, and they might know they walk balls, but they have a place to live. Jacob has nowhere to go. He gets involved with one of his many boyfriends, and the boyfriend is crafting, which is like credit card stunts and stuff like that, and check stunts or whatever. So he gets thrown into a really, really heavy world because he really had no choice. And I think, depending how far this book goes and who I'm published with, parents need to know some of these stories. They need to know that homophobia doesn't just affect, gay people. It affects straight people too. It could be your son, your father, your brother, your mother that's gay if you don't know whatever. So that's kind of what happens with that aspect. Is that Michael?
I was trying to remember reading the earlier draft, and on the one hand, it's not a trite book about coming out.
Yeah.
But yet, that it's really more. There's a lot of struggle over gender identity, this sense of how can you be masculine or not. And I was just wondering if you kind of talk about your decision to kind of focus on that, because that's not really in a lot of books. The struggle post coming out, or even during that process of working out who am I as a man.
Right, exactly. I didn't want to make it like a coming out story. There's like a bunch of those. So the first chapter, when I know a lot of people that came out, the minute I got with the dude, it was a wrap. It was like, oh, this is it. It wasn't like, I wasn't like, oh, I don't know. But with him, it was more about blending in. Regardless if he's having sex with a man or not, it was more about people not knowing and being discreet. And unless he was in that scene. So he grappled with gender and the roles that he has to play as being a black man or being a man of color, and always feeling like he didn't really, fit in, and when he was younger, the boys would pick on him or whatever. So, it was more like hiding that, his, gender issues. And when he would go to the balls, he would feel something comfortable when, gender bends and the codes of gender, rules of gender are altered. But sometimes they're altered in the opposite way, like, if you look a certain way, you should be a realness kid, which is the boys that walk and they pass for straight. So it's kind of him always grappling, he's just trying to figure it out. But yeah, definitely deal with gender roles.
I was just curious if there were, with any of the publishing interests, if there were issues of any kinds of censorship, or if you've been asked to like tone things down in certain areas, or?
Well, when I first was looking for a publisher a couple of years ago, well, I wasn't really ready, but I was looking for one anyways. There were issues, but the climate has changed as far as quote-unquote gay issues or whatever, LGBT issues. So the climate's changed a lot, so I haven't really got that now. And people think that, you know, sex kind of sells to a certain extent, even in literature. So I haven't had that. But that scene that I read, I've been debating about taking it out or putting it in. But I want to keep it in because it's real and it's raw, and that happens to a lot of people. I mean, and not just men, not just gay men, it happens to, you know, straight girls in Atlantic City, you know, whatever the case may be. So, and I don't really have explicit, hot, horny, porn sex scenes. You know, when they fucking, they just fucking. I don't really go into, oh, he's doing me hard, you know.
Or for the opposite, if you've been asked to like add more.
Yeah. Especially I never know, but not that yet.
Hi. So in the beginning, as you were introducing it, you said that this would be one of the first sort of publication of its kind, a story from someone in the scene and in the poem scene. And I wonder if, in your writing of it, you were thinking about how this scene gets introduced to mainstream,
Right.
Because so often the scene is introduced in those negative ways.
Right.
And so, just from reading that particular paragraph or chapter, I said, okay, here we go again. And that, is this the way that we're going to continue to paint ballrooms? And not to say that that particular experience doesn't exist. In many cases it does. And along with that experience comes the fact that white people are given a particular role in the ballroom scene. So it is, for me, it is significant that you have this white man getting his dick sucked by a young black man, because in many cases, white folk in the ballroom scene have that kind of experience. Or given that kind of role, and they aren't necessarily in the ballroom scene, but that's sort of what that connection is. And so as this book gets put out, and, you know, middle-class white folk, whoever, begin to read it, if you thought about if you were sort of eroticizing or sensationalizing or just focusing on the negative aspect of the scene, because it's done before, it's happened before, and the scene hasn't really had an opportunity to blossom, or not to blossom, but to get the kind of attention or light that it deserves, which is a positive one, which is one that speaks to the indigenousness of it,
Right.
which is one that speaks to the true beauty of the ballroom scene in all of its flawedness, right? So I was wondering if you thought about that as you were writing.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, well, the first thing I have to say, I mean, the scenes that I read here were fairly intense scenes. But I felt like this is, you know, an LGBT environment, so I felt comfortable having those scenes. But an important thing is that, as far as representing, I'm not concerned about positive representation for the ruling class or for mainstream. I'm not concerned with that. So I didn't write it as if, oh, gotta make sure it's all positive, oh, gotta make sure, I wrote with the idea that I wanted to be real and I wanted to be honest. I didn't want to be exploited, which I made sure it wasn't that. So I really show a variety of things. And if, you know, some white woman votes for George Bush in Alabama, gets a certain perception of it, if she even wants to read something like that, you know, it would be somewhat vapid of her to not dive deeper into the book and understand that, I mean, it's not all negative at all. I don't think I present that at all. I do present real, raw things. But at the end, you know, you really see it coming together. And all throughout the book, I reiterate that there are positive ballroom characters in this book. But it's not the ballroom scene that's fucking Jacob up. It's him. It's him. He's fucking it up. You know, a lot of kids, I mean, a lot of gay people will blame, oh, it's because I'm gay. Oh, it's because of the moment. Oh, it's because of this. And sure, there's an element there in this environmental determinism, but it's not that. It's his own decisions and his choices. He makes some horrible decisions. Decisions that I think a lot of people could relate to. So, yeah, I was concerned with that, but I don't want to make it too positive, because that would be disingenuous. What was that?
I think it would be unrealistic for anything that you read about any scene to be completely
Not negative.
devoid of negativity. I mean, other ballroom writer, Emmanuel Xavier, I mean, a lot of it is gritty and raw, but it's true. I mean, he's not embellishing it, it's what he lived. And I think you have to present the gritty side, because you have to go through that to come out on the other side.
But the flip side of that being, if you, and I would 100% agree with you, if you present that side though, do you lose the opportunity for someone who's not aware of it to ever learn more because they are easily turned off by what they've read? So does it become the writer's responsibility to try to make things digestible for people, or to just write exactly what he or she wants to say?
Well, for me, I mean, I'm an artist, and like I said, I can't be concerned with positive representation for people that are that can't read a novel and understand. I mean,
I don't think you meant positive representation.
No, I mean,
Yeah, that's kind of the way people are responding to it. It really wasn't meant that way. I just think that you sort of had really good language around the responsibility of the writer, and that, you know, this particular scene and about other scenes, but that on some level it would be a really, really good idea to keep the real gritty and negative stuff in there because it does exist, but at the same time have stuff that does talk about the beauty and the,
No, I definitely
and the
do that.
positive stuff. And again, because that's the only chapter that I heard, that's
Right.
where I was coming from.
Right, I definitely do that. I mean, I put all aspects in there. I mean, I definitely, and I was thinking of that. So I don't know if I say, oh, should I hit this fourth part ballroom scene? I mean, I was thinking of that, but I make sure I do that. But there are some really raw things in there, and also the things that happen. The main things that happen is not really at a ball. Things that he experiences happens, you know, outside of it. You know, but it's a story. And it's not solely about the ball. The ballroom scene is a backdrop and a place where he finds a identity. And at the end, you know, he kind of found somewhat of a balance. But I see what you're saying. I mean, I see what you're saying, but I don't think I do that book at all. You know.
Throughout history, there have been books that have been the catalyst for a change in thought, and you know, and different kinds of things in the way people think, like, you know, Uncle Tom's Cabin, for instance, changed the way people thought about slavery. If you could, what impact would you have your book have on changing something in society? Something that you feel is not right?
Well, I mean, if like, hopefully the book, considering who I'm working with, hopefully it'll get to that level when Bill Holbrook makes it a book club, you know. That'll be a whole new thing. But I mean, the impact that I would like for it to have is really just to get a voice out there. This is an unsung voice. This is a voice that hasn't been heard. And that's really what's important to me. You know, I was a reader when I was a kid. And if I would have read something like that I can more so relate to, I probably would have did things differently. Not that I made a whole bunch of fucking mistakes, but I know other kids that would have done things differently. So really just to get that voice out there, the voice that, I mean, maybe if I write this and it getting out there, somebody else will write something and their own story or their own take on it or whatever. There's been tons of books written about subcultures. But this is a fiction novel, this is a fictionalized account. I mean, on a larger level, I would love for like, especially the issues that I deal with the church, the black church. I would love for someone to just pick something, you know, because people are dying. And I think a lot of reasons why black folks are so high in HIV rates is because we can't go to the church, and the church is a big part of our community, you know. So I would love for that to happen. But more than anything, this is an unsung voice, and I want to get that voice out there. I want somebody's story to be told. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just have two questions. One is, in the actual writing of the novel, how did you deal with the question of dance? Because dance is such an important part of the ballroom scene, like the physicality of it. It's almost hard to describe in words. I was wondering that. And the other thing, my own observation of the ball scene is, it strikes me as a very American scene. And let me qualify it. I mean that you deal with celebrity.
It's really, really challenging, but the few people that I had Michael read that scene, the people that I had read it, they liked it a lot. And people that knew nothing about voguing really got it. That's beyond, and I actually explained in the beginning, like, when he's asking about voguing and he's seeing it for the first time, he did it to Madonna, which is the first thing everybody thinks of. Madonna, come on, Vogue. And so I wanted to put that out there and chop it out. There's something totally different. So I really had to get really detailed with it. And not even just the physicality of it, but like the drama of it and the emotion of it, you know what I'm saying? Like you know, I had to really put all that in there. So I think that I did that effectively. But that was a lot of work. I edited that so many times. And the other version of it, as far as it being an American thing, you know, one could say the ballroom scene is somewhat, quote unquote, like Eurocentric, you know? Like you said, as far as the celebrity and things of that nature. And the character comes across that. But it's kind of like he's looking to be accepted so much that he doesn't really, you know, he's been socialized like everybody else. He's been socialized in a society where things that are more Eurocentric oriented are more pretty or more attractive. And being that celebrity, being that legend is what he wants to be. Because in the ballroom scene, you are a celebrity in your own community. You are, I mean, there's stars in the ballroom scene. I mean, if you go to like Walk For Me Wednesdays, it's like the National Enquirer, which is the website for the ballroom kids. It's like the fucking tabloids, you know, so there really is a part of it that's like that. But as far as him encountering that, you see it more through the eyes of other people around him. Because he's just soaking it all in, he wants it so bad. But I agree with that, but also I think that, I don't want to say necessarily a bad thing. I mean, one might say it is, but it's the way that people are expressing themselves in an American way. And these people are American. So, they should be able to do that. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Yes, I don't know how much time we have left. So before we left, I wanted to ask you, because I find your writing very interesting and I'm a fellow writer. Are you working on any projects other than getting this one published? And what are they about? It was like a sneak preview, if you would.
Right. Well, if I get this book deal that I'm working on, it'll be a 3-book deal. And my goal is to have a sequel for this. And so I have that in my head. And the other thing is, this sounds really dramatic. It's kind of hard for me to explain it. But I wanted to write a book about, like you also saw Fatal Attraction, right? So I wanted to write a book about that, but with like the DL thing almost. But not, it sounds kind of campy, but I wanted to do something like that, like, you know, have a good, you know, Glenn Close's black gay character and whatever. But that's kind of what I'm working on, those 2 things. But I'm still working on the logistics for that. I'm trying to focus on this, but if I do get this 3-book deal, it'll definitely be a sequel to Ball Shape World, depending on how much it sells, of course. So yeah.
Is the story set in a particular time, or is it something that could have happened yesterday?
Well, I tried to make it not set in a time. Originally, it was set in the late 90s, and then it just wasn't working because the scenes changed so much. So like I said, I used the real houses, but I didn't use anybody's name. So I, like originally I had like House of Mizrahi, so I had to take that out and put in something else. And I tried to avoid using fashion designers for the same time reason. So I never mentioned time at all. I never mentioned time. Any like music that I mentioned, they're like kind of somewhat timeless songs that you still hear in the clubs today. So I wanted to make sure when it came out, it would come out, if it comes out in the next year or so, hopefully earlier than that it will be, people can still relate to it. They're like, oh child, this is 1995, you know, what's going on? So I try to focus on that. Yes.
On a personal level, say, what made you pull away from the ballroom scene? Because I know we started around the same time.
Yeah,
I kind of continued, and you kind of like pulled away after a while. What made you pull away, stop walking your category, and like think do other things, or you know what happened?
Well, I don't know. I felt like I didn't have the character to be like a ballroom diva. You know, I just feel like I didn't have it. I was like, oh, I can't do this. It was a lot of work. And it was a lot of work. You know, it's a lot of work. You know what I'm saying? So I don't respect anybody that, you know, gets out there like that. But I didn't have the character, and I'm more into like writing and music, and I got really heavily involved in my music. I play rock music or whatever. So it kind of made me pull back. But I learned so much from that time spent. But I keep in contact with, I have some pretty good friends in the scene. So I always go to a ball every once in a while. But I don't know, it wasn't really for me. You know, I don't know, I didn't really have it like that. I didn't think I could walk facing up. But I'm not going to move the face. I don't have the structure. I don't have all that. So I kind of avoided that. But I still come out to the events and see the movie. Yeah.
fearful of exploitation.
What you said?
Not personal exploitation, but I mean like next thing you know, just like rave culture was underground in the early 90s. Now everybody goes to rave and everything is about raving and everybody's got the same things. And are you fearful that, you know, every little big boy is gonna have to end up reading your book and trying to climb the ball and then trying to walk face?
Well, I don't
lose the essence of what the ballroom was.
I don't think, I could be wrong, this is my opinion, I don't think the ballroom scene will ever be mainstream. I really, really highly doubt it. And I don't mean to make the racial lines in it, because it's a bunch of Black and Latino kids. I don't think you're gonna have like some 30-year-olds popping and dipping it, you know, and like, I don't think it's ever gonna happen. And I don't know if a lot of the kids want it to be mainstream. So, I mean, if the book goes to where I want it to go, I mean, I'm sure I'll have some exposure. But then it's literature too. It isn't an actual movie. So I don't know. I'm not really worried about that. I don't think it will ever be that mainstream for everybody's life. Doing that. It might be. I don't know. I mean, you never know. But you ain't gonna see the balls like on the Olympics. You know? And it's kind of good because you need that. Because if it did get mainstream, it will be commodified. Reality TV, but I just don't believe that.
Anyone else have any other questions? I just want to ask you before we wrap it up, what is your goal? What is your hope?
People will have issues with it, some won't, some will like it, whatever the case may be. But I just hope that they walk away, and that it was real, and that it was honest. And I don't want anyone to think it was exploited either, so I don't, or making the whole ballroom scene look bad. So I know it doesn't do that, so I know people read it in full. They won't get that vibe. So I just hope they get a real honest story, you know, from it. And I hope, you know, for some kid or some 40-year-old that's on the DL, you know, reads that or whatever, and anybody and gets something from it and decides to look at things differently. Or, you know, some mother whose kid just came out, you know what I'm saying, something like that, that they decide to make a different decision. Because I purposely had this character make a lot of mistakes. You know, I had to make it a story. I could have made it like sunshine and dewdrops, you know. So I purposely had the character make a lot of mistakes. I just hope they get that real story from it, you know, and that it's honest. And then something else coming out of it. You never know, somebody else, some legend in the ballroom scene may want to tell their story. It'll be easier to tell it. The publishing industry is just as bad as the music industry. It's crazy.
Clay King.
Oh, wait. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, I'll ask the hand. Okay.
Clay King. There's an open bar for everybody. It's an hour.
Bye bye.